community of Western Australia in recycling. Our role, leading up to the 1st of July next year, is to get all of our stakeholders engaged and ready to enable a smooth transition for these 200 million containers the Premier mentioned. For our refund point operators, like the City of Perth, there are 66 around the state. They will be receiving about another 20,000 tonnes of glass. So you can appreciate that it will take a lot of effort to get all of those refund points able to receive that material efficiently and safely and get it into our unique glass bottle-to-bottle recycling system, which is a fantastic outcome for recycling, as the Premier said. For our beverage companies, the wine and spirit producers, we anticipate there will be another 800 of those entities who will need to register with the scheme. Together with all of their eligible products will need to be registered as well, and of course to engage them in the supply amount that they will be providing for us to operate the scheme, to fund the scheme. And finally, of course, consumers, to communicate with them exactly what's eligible and to, as we lead up to the 1st of July, encourage everybody to continue to use the bin system recommended by Waste Sorted, which for almost all of the material is just continue to use your yellow lid commingle bin at home and at work until we get to the 1st of July next year. We're very excited about this initiative and its impact to support both recycling objectives but also the social objectives of the scheme as well. Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for Tim?
Have people been asking at the window when can I start bringing my wine bottles?
Yes, the Queensland started a couple of years ago with wine and spirit. The Premier announced during the election campaign that this was going to be part of the program for this term. So yeah, it's created a lot of interest. Certainly our refund point operators are very excited about it. Good Sammy's, of course, being one of those, and are already getting ready and looking forward to getting all of this material through the system and ensuring it's recycled.
Is there still a large proportion of kids taking part in the Containers for Change? Is that something that you see a lot?
Yeah, definitely. Children, families, grandparents with grandchildren participating, learning about recycling, I think getting a better appreciation of the value of the dollar, and it doesn't grow on trees, and all of those elements as well. We know that from our official consumer research that 90% of the community is aware and 85% of the community participating. It's an extraordinary adoption of this container deposit scheme and is guaranteeing a fantastic recycling outcome that we haven't seen before. The effective rate of recycling of eligible containers has doubled since the scheme started. We've got further to go. We want to encourage everyone to further think about separating their containers out of home, particularly at work and at recreation, to keep those containers out of general waste. Find one of our increasingly available facilities to return, whether it's a container exchange point or a donation point from one of the 5,000 schools, community groups or charities who are participating. There's multiple ways now to participate, so we just are focused on encouraging that participation and encouraging people not to use a red lid general waste bin to dispose of recyclable material. That's really what we're focused on now, and this scheme will help us do that to a greater extent going forward.
Questions for the Environment Minister?
Thanks very much, Tim.
Minister, what's going to stop people from just hoarding wine bottles right now? You kind of spoke about
They're good citizens. That's what will stop them. We can't stop them from hoarding it. And if people return, there's an obligation on the return sites to take that material. But in terms of this scheme itself, what we don't want them to do is overwhelm them with a sudden influx. Now, look, when we first established this scheme several years ago, we had people who did hoard, but we strongly encouraged them not to do that. The scheme works because everybody plays by the rules, and so that's what we really want them to do. But there has been a few Cabinet colleagues suggesting to me that they've been hoarding, and I have, again, strongly discouraged them from engaging that behaviour. But in all seriousness, that's the key, and hopefully the message we get out today is 1st of July, any container that you purchase from that day onwards, you can return and get your 10% deposit on it. But don't keep your other material, put it into your recycling, your commingled recycling bin that your local government collects.
Because you can't tell with those
Look,
be sold after?
you can tell at some level because on the containers themselves they will contain the participating 10-cent sign, and some of them are barcoded, so there are some issues there. But the system doesn't want to be overly discouraging to people to recycle, because that's the whole goal here, is recycling and getting that material back into the system. So again, don't publish that people can't tell so much if you can help it here. I think if we can get the message out that we want people to be responsible with their recycling initiatives here, don't hoard them, keep putting them into your recycling bin at home or around the community, and then from the 1st of July next year, then you will do that. Now, people already know that we're going to make this change because it was an election commitment and we keep to our commitments. So they already know. And it's one of the good reasons to bring this forward, is that there's less opportunity for people to hoard those materials, and it's less of a burden on the scheme in those circumstances.
Is 10 cents enough, or will that refund point be reviewed at some point to ensure the incentive continues?
I think it is enough. I think 10 cents, you only need 10 containers and you've got $1. And so I think that is the right amount at this particular point in time.
And $1 doesn't buy you much now.
No, but if you're a kid, it buys you some lollies, and that's what we used to do when I lived in South Australia, and they bought their scheme in either in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was 5 cents a container at that time, and it's only gone on. But one of the other things, Jess, is we want to keep this nationally consistent, so any change in the rate, and it's not on our agenda to change the rate, but any change would have to be done in coordination with the other jurisdictions so that there is uniformity across the whole beverage industry for these sorts of things. But 10 cents is still okay. 100 containers are easy to get together, and that's $10. So we think that's okay. And we haven't seen evidence that it's not enough. And remember, this is a deposit scheme. So what people pay when they deposit is their 10 cents, and what they get back is their own 10 cents. So if we increased it to another amount, then they would obviously have to incur that additional upfront deposit fee. So it's not our intention at this time.
Why has it taken WA 2 years longer than Queensland to bring white
Well, we bought our scheme in 2020, and so we've been bedding down that scheme for the last few years. There has obviously been some resistance from industry to be included in this, because it does place some burden on them, but they also need the responsibility that we all accept now, that when you create a product, you've got stewardship of that product, and this is part of that stewardship process. So there was a review that was done not long ago about and consultation with industry about the expansion of the program, and now is the time for us to deliver on that. So we're keen to do that. We will be doing it sooner than New South Wales and South Australia, who have announced that they will be accepting wine and spirit bottles as well, but we're getting on. Theirs won't be until 2027, and ours is in 2026.
Where are we up to with the climate change bill, Minister?
The climate change bill is with the Minister for Energy, so she's currently working, I believe, on some legislation, but it's not in my portfolio.
Premier said yesterday that it wasn't acceptable that BHP and Rio do the bare minimum for cutting emissions. I guess, do you share that view from the government's point of view?
I think what we ask of those industries is to do not the bare minimum. We would like them to. They need a social licence, and the social licence for people in Western Australia is that they will take effective action to reduce their carbon footprint. There's some really good companies out there that are doing well, that are innovative and are at the front, and others sometimes just do the bare minimum. But we would like them to do all that they can to reduce their carbon footprint.
Are we doing even less than the bare minimum by not having no?
No.
Questions for the Premier?
That matter is currently before the EPA, and whilst that's before the EPA, I will resist making any comments on it, because ultimately that EPA recommendation report will come to me for decisions. Do I acknowledge them? I certainly acknowledge their contribution and what they have to say. We don't, as a government, we recognise Indigenous people's connection to country and how important it is. But I'll also recognise that Alcoa is a significant employer in Western Australia. A lot of people's livelihood does depend on the industry that they engage in. So for our government, it will be a fine balancing act between those environmental issues along with the important economic and social benefits that come from having a mining company that has been a long participant in the West Australian community and does downstream processing, which is often what doesn't happen in our industry and what the Premier has been working very hard to achieve in the iron ore industry. So, yeah, it's a fine balance.
Questions for the Premier?
Thanks very much, man. Any other questions?
So the latest lead detections at PCH,
Yep.
how much did those 5 samples in August exceed the safe drinking water guidelines?
Look, I don't have details in terms of the data in relation to that. We're advised that there were some exceedances, however, they weren't in patient-facing areas and posed no risk to the public, patients or staff. But obviously it's a concern that we still have, particularly around these 2 specific locations, some exceedances, and so we've obviously taken them offline and are addressing that through remediation. We previously had, replaced the taps in that area, but we've still got these exceedances, so somewhere, further back on the piping perhaps needs to be addressed.
Why not release the data and how much they've exceeded the guidelines by so people can judge if it is a risk?
So I want to provide as much data as I can and information to the community. Transparency in these situations is obviously very important. We don't want to overly alarm the community just by simply flooding contextualised data into the community, but I'm working with the Minister of Health at the moment to see how we can provide more information.
Okay, but we asked that data on Friday morning
Yep.
and again yesterday, and we still haven't got it.
Yeah, and I'm talking to the Health Minister about how we can provide as much information to the public as possible so that they're armed with information, but not just non-contextualised, non-filtered data which might raise unnecessarily alarm.
Because is it reasonable to say that there's no risk to the public when, the Australian Safe Drinking Water Guidelines
Yeah.
are set at that level for a reason, and the lead
Yeah.
detection has exceeded that standard?
Yeah, so that's a great example of how we need to understand the circumstances in which these exceedances occurred, where they occurred. Was it a repeat situation or are they occasional spikes? So all these things are important in terms of the assessment which the Chief Health Officer makes with regards to public health safety. Thanks for that question. It was a good question.
Just sticking with health, you said this morning we need to consider communities to the north of Judah,
Yep.
a potential site for a hospital. Is that site Yanchep?
Yeah, look, I think we've all understood for some time that as those far northern suburbs start to develop, we'll ultimately need to think about how we can provide health services or hospital services in this context to those communities. There is a site at Yanchep which is set aside as part of the forward planning for that whole community. So it's a point of fact that at some point in time we'll need to look at expanding our hospital services to the north. I don't have a time for that, but we are looking at all those things as we assess what the demand is and the areas of that demand.
You have said
Lily has a
medium
time,
term.
though.
Yeah.
What is
So-
medium term?
Sorry, how about I go back to a follow-up? Yeah.
Peter Lilly does have a time frame though. He says we need a new hospital within 7 years. Will you commit to that?
Well, the commitment that we make is we'll continue to expand beds. We've already expanded the number of beds since 2021 by 900, with a similar number in our minds that we'll have to provide over the next 4 years. Now, some of that might be through the expansion of existing hospitals, some will be new hospitals, but we'll be advised by the experts and the planners in relation to the overall configuration.
You have
Sorry,
said
Jess.
the medium term for Yanchep.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
is medium term?
Well, again, we are looking at all the future needs of our community in relation to hospital services. That's one of the reasons why we have a $3.2 billion pipeline of new and upgraded health infrastructure to meet the needs of a growing and ageing population.
Is medium term 5 years or 10 years?
Oh, well, look, I think the Peter mentioned the next 7 years. So, we're looking at at those sort of numbers. So I can't say that we're going to do this in this specific period of time. But as you know, the health department is always looking at these planning and forward projections of demand to see how we need to continue to develop our health infrastructure. Courtney.
Was Yanchep the hospital that you were alluding to this morning? when
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
speaking tonight? And is that site the one that's next to the train station?
I think that's right. Yeah, Yanchep is a planned community. It's they've looked deeply into how that whole community unfolds. And when I was health minister, I had conversations with Tokyo Corporation, who are developing the Yanchep community, and we've discussed directly in terms of what are the interim phases in relation to providing health services, and then ultimately how will we unfold those health services to the community. I acknowledge that the people to the north, those communities are growing, and so we need to keep an eye on that.
Bentley, sir.
Federal Environment Minister Murray Watt said yesterday that
Oh, look, I share Minister Watt's, I guess, desire for those negotiations to conclude. I want them to conclude. Obviously, this is a conversation between Woodside and the Commonwealth Government. Western Australia has undertaken its assessment in relation to the North West Shelf gas extension, and we've endorsed it. So we'd like those conversations those negotiations to conclude as soon as possible.
There's obviously some real sticking points there. It's taken near on 4 months now. Are you concerned with these delays?
Oh, well, look, I'm at least satisfied that the Commonwealth Government and Woodside are deeply engaged in relation to these things, and obviously we want to see them, those conversations concluded as a matter of urgency.
What is the risk they rush the equity? You don't want to see it rushed, you want to see it equity. What is the risk if things are rushed?
If the negotiations are rushed? Well, look, I don't think you can accuse them of rushing their negotiations. They've been in discussions for some time now, certainly since the federal government was re-elected. And look, I spoke to Minister Watt just a fortnight ago in relation to these matters. There are issues that they are engaging over, but he continues to be confident that they will reach a negotiated outcome.
This, the Bentley Analyst and Health Service, the competition we were talking about yesterday, I think the next closest service one will be Armidale and somewhere else. Does that leave a bit of a hole in that, in and around that area?
Well, we've certainly made some interim arrangements to ensure that the families that rely upon the family clinic do get the support they need, and that would be both through outreach, telehealth and temporary facilities. We are looking to develop Bentley Hospital as a key asset for surgery, elective surgery, so that we can continue to get people with the operations they need through a dedicated facility. And we understand that that brings inconvenience as we start to transition to the new arrangements. We apologise for that inconvenience, but I want to assure everyone who relies on that clinic that we'll stand by you and we'll provide the services we can, albeit on an interim arrangement. It may be slightly different format.
Who's going to dictate
Price,
Sorry, I'll go back to Connor. Yeah.
very interested in that particular price. Avoided media this morning.
I'm sure she did.
Yeah, there's plenty around that. I don't know, what do you make of that? She's here kind of spreading her gospel in WA. It doesn't really, I guess it's just to her people. What do you think of that?
Well, she's guilty of inciting division and anxiety in the community, particularly amongst our Indian community, through her race-laced language. And it's quite unacceptable. I back the Prime Minister's call for her to provide an apology to members of our Indian community. One of my government's priorities is to keep the community safe, and one of the ways we do that is by having an inclusive, tolerant community which embraces our multiculturalism. What Senator Price has done is front and centre said to those Indian members of that Indian community, I don't value you and you're not welcome. I want to say to the Indian community, you enrich our lives, you bring great skills and culture to our community, and we embrace you as part of our multicultural community. I think it's time that while she's in Western Australia, for the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the Liberal Party in Western Australia, to call her out, to call out her race-based language. It's time for Basil Zempilas to make sure that he is on the record. Call out Senator Price's language, demand that she issues an apology to the Indian community of Western Australia.
You mentioned Basil Zempilas there. Some Liberals have apologised to the Indian community and urged Jacinta to apologise, but not only Basil but also Michaelia Cash and Andrew Hastie so far haven't and have been at events with her this morning. Do the senior WA Liberals need to step up?
Look, Michaelia Cash is the most senior WA Liberal in Western Australia. She has a responsibility to stand up for the Indian community of Western Australia. The great climate denier of Western Australia, Andrew Hastie, he should stand up. He wants to be the leader of the Liberal parties nationally. He's got a responsibility to say where he stands in relation to some of the most offensive commentary I've heard from a federal member of parliament in some time. And of course, Senator Price, you're in Western Australia. Apologise to the Indian community of Western Australia for your hateful and divisive language.
Senator Price is angling at here in terms of, do you think Liberals are trying to appeal, or some Liberals are trying to appeal to a certain section of the electorate, and what do you think they
Well, we know that the Liberal Party in Western Australia is in the grips of the Klan, a group that peddle all kinds of extremist ideology, particularly when it comes to church or religious-based ideology. And quite frankly, I think the people of Western Australia served their verdict on what that sort of group are doing and what they represent. And quite frankly, I think the leader of the Liberal Party in Western Australia has a responsibility to call out this divisive, nasty language and activity and make sure he brings the Liberal Party back to the centre. The Liberal Party are lurching to the extreme right of Western Australia. They're appealing to these groups which are quite frankly trying to divide our community, not unite us. It's time for the Liberal Party to come back to the centre, and the leader of the Liberal Party in Western Australia should call out the Klan, call out this race-filled language, call out this divisive language which you see creeping in to the Liberal Party day in, day out.
There's another event tomorrow night to spend Nick Moran and the community centre in Perth. What do you think of that choice of those two?
Oh well, look, I've seen the individuals and the marketing for these sort of these forums. It really seems that the Liberal Party are starting to try to appeal to an extreme element in the community. The fact that Michaelia Cash and the leader of the Liberal Party in WA, Basil Zemplis, are not demanding that Senator Price apologise for her race-based language really speaks volumes about what's really going on in the heart of these people. What's motivating them? Are they trying to unite the Western Australian community, or are they backing Senator Namatjira Price and trying to divide the Western Australian community?
Have you changed tactics with the Burswood Park project yesterday? You said you got it wrong when you were in opposition opposing Optus Stadium. I spoke to Rex Whitby. He said, Hillary's Boat Hub is another example of a project people were in opposition to at the time. Have you kind of changed tactics, hoping to get more punters on side with this project?
No, we're just making an observation that these projects often, bring a whole range of different opinions and passionate views. But once you see them take place, once you see the projects come to life, well, then they have a much broader acceptance in the community. Almost just 100 metres away, you've got the Graham Farmer Freeway going underneath the northern suburbs of Perth here. I remember I was pretty opposed to that as well, but I used it this morning when I came to work. It's a great piece of transport infrastructure. So look, I understand there's a divergence of views, a whole range of different views in relation to this. But I want to just say to the people of Western Australia, through the proposal that we made at the election, there will be more tree canopy on the Burswood Peninsula. There'll be more recreational facilities. There'll be basketball courts. There'll be a cycling facility. There will also be an outdoor entertainment precinct, and of course, the issue that people are talking about is what would be a once-in-a-year event, a marquee event, which would be a motorsports event as well. But what we want to do is to continue to use the Burswood Peninsula to activate that whole sports and entertainment precinct to the benefit of the whole community.
Last question.
Yeah.
They'll
do other ones.
Just your point on that, I'm sorry, but you're saying it's a once-in-a-year motorsport event, but the bitumen will be there permanently. So it's not a once-in-a-year racetrack. Yeah,
there's bitumen going through that parkland all the time, and as I've observed before, this is a former waste infill facility. We'll expand the tree canopy, we'll bring more amenity to that area, and I think people will be pleased with the outcome. But we're continuing to work through the processes around design, community consultation, and we'll continue to move through those.
Thanks, guys. Could we just get a comment on the parliamentary committee hearing into the Firearms Act that's happening today?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to see come out of that program?
Well, obviously, this is a committee which is looking into the rollout of the biggest reform of our gun laws in Western Australia in the last 2 decades. So we expect there to be a range of views expressed, and we welcome those views. The idea of parliamentary committees is that they can provide extra insight and inform the public policy debate, and I'll welcome that.
One from left field. Are you concerned development at Elizabeth Quay, lots 2, 3 and 4 has stalled?
Can you just refresh me which ones 2, 3 and 4? Okay, look, all right.
But apparently, little has progressed. The shareholders are a mystery. The plans
Oh, okay. You're talking about the big tower.
Correct.
Yeah. Look. Obviously, we see some great built form on Elizabeth Quay. The infrastructure, the architecture there is exciting. I'd love to see the residential facility and the hotel facility come to life. And we're all sitting there in wide and anxious anticipation to see what goes on there. But it'll be welcome when it comes to Elizabeth Quay. Let's bring it on now and really bring Elizabeth Quay to life.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Was that helpful?
Not my story.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering because there's that corner block which hasn't even started yet. So I wasn't sure if you referred to that one or.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah. Well,